can't beat them, join them, right? And by beat them, I mean the worst of the worst, because that's what I am with these things. So that's round two. That's second time in a row. Adam had to save my butt. Adam, as always, thank you very much. I appreciate it. Welcome to the second Mega Chill function that you're listening to. Please hit like, subscribe, comment, because Lord knows you need to see more of my blunders for more people, need to see those things. So anyway, but I'm here, second installment of the Mega Chill stream by myself. I am just one portion of the comic bench. My name is Paul Herman. Thank you so much. I'm here today to talk about something kind of fun. Kind of fun to talk about today. We're going to talk about Chip Zdarsky's Batman run. For those who don't know, Chip Zdarsky is a prolific comic book writer in the business right now. And I'm a fan of Chip Zdarsky. I don't know if I'm a giant fan. I've been reading his Daredevil. His Daredevil has been pretty good for the most part. I don't know if it's been the most consistent of the titles that he's maybe written. I don't know. I've read a bunch of his Invaders comics, which actually are pretty good. But I didn't finish the series though. I should probably tell you something, but it's not really. The time I was reading it wasn't ready for it. But one day I will. One day I will. And yes. Let's see here. Thank you, Adam. Adam always saved my butt. And Andrew, always appreciate you, homie. So yeah, Invaders was pretty good. And the one thing I would say about Zdarsky is after reading his Spider-Man run, it pretty much encapsulates, excuse me, that kind of what I probably said that wrong. I'm sorry, y'all. The one thing I would say about that run with Spider-Man, his spectacular Spider-Man run, it started off well, just like his Daredevil run, right? And his Daredevil run, basically, and like Spider-Man run, are kind of like the same. They start off kind of interesting for me and pretty good. They kind of meander for a while, and then it kind of goes. You can veer off into really good or really bad. And I don't know, for Spider-Man, he just never really got enough traction for me. I thought he was great. He was a good comic writer, but he throws these issues that I think maybe are some of the best Spider-Man issues that are written in like 10 years. Like the issue with J. Jonah Jameson and Spider-Man, and how when Peter reveals who he is to it for the first time, that is an incredible issue. And his last issue is pretty good too. And there's a couple good things here and there, but it's just a really weird run. He does, and the one thing I would say about Chip Zdarsky is he is if you compare him to a power hitter, right? A power hitter to let's say baseball, right? Like a DH. This guy doesn't hit for power. Well, that was interesting. Anyway, as I was saying, he hits for power. And the one thing about my big brother, thank you, Derek. I appreciate you supporting me, brother. I love you. FTA, God. The thing about Chip Zdarsky is he hits either doubles or home runs, or he strikes out. That's what he does. And Chip Zdarsky is going to be a writer that I think is like that for most people. But he's not a bad writer. He's good. He's good. And that brings me to what we're going to talk about today, which is his Batman run. Now, I'm a fan of his Daredevil run. I think it's pretty good. His Batman run has been interesting. I have a lot of my friends out there who are they're not fans. They're not fans of Chip Zdarsky's his whole thing with Batman. And I was excited because I do think his Daredevil run has been pretty good. I was pretty happy about, Batman him joining Batman, because he also wrote a fantastic comic book for Batman Urban Legends about the Red Hood, which I think is a fantastic story. And I was really excited. I'm like, man, I got I got pumped because you got Ram V doing detective, which I'm gonna do. I make a chill probably next week on that. Haven't read. I only read one issue of that, and I barely remember it. So, but I have like a bunch of the issues and the annual to read. And then Chip Zdarsky is on the regular Batman title, as we can see here. And the one thing about Chip Zdarsky's Batman that I would say, it's got just a phenomenal artist, man. Phil Jaimez, or oh my gosh, I'm terrible with names. Everyone knows I'm terrible with these things. Was it Jorge? I believe it's Jorge Jaimez. Again, I'm terrible. Yeah, Jorge Jaimez. And the thing with this comic book series is that the art is fantastic. And with Chip Zdarsky joining this team, on the Batman character, by the way, I love this cover. This is an amazing cover. No pun intended. I was excited because I think with Ram V and Chip Zdarsky, two big names in comic books, superhero comic books anyway, mainstream comic books, it's a big deal. And the fact that DC's got these two big writers on Batman is a big deal. So I got really excited. And I went and recently binged the Chip Zdarsky Batman series. And a lot of my friends aren't liking it or not loving it. And I was curious what I would think about going into it. And I gotta tell you, I am I don't know. I tend to, here's what I think about this, and I'm going to tell you a very basic story. It's basically if Batman, one of his default projects, or hit this in case of emergency, if he ever went off the deep end, what happens? And it's interesting because the one thing about Chip Zdarsky is that I think he really respects continuity for the most part. And I think, and not just with this, but in everything, he really tries to interweave lots of different things. And I really respect it in this instance. And I'm not super enthralled into the DC continuity, a little bit here or there, but it's interesting. And me personally, I thought it was pretty good in a sense to where it goes back and really dives deep in a lot of different things. Now, this character seems failsafe, and there's ties to mentions of Tower of Babel by Mark Waid, and there's another major continuity connection we're going to get into in a second. But I thought it was interesting. I'm not the biggest Tower of Babel fan. I think Tower of Babel is a pretty overrated story. It's not bad. It's just not something I loved. I read it. I'm like, okay, it's whatever. But Justice League Mortal is very loosely based on this idea. Basically, if Batman had contingency plans for the Justice League and what would happen, and then like got into Ra's al Ghul, and they all came after him. It's like, Batman, I can't believe you did this. Oh my god, blah blah blah. And I was like, okay, whatever, it's fine. And this is a play on that, which I thought was interesting. I'm like, okay. And so with this, you get Batman basically going up against his failsafe, which is failsafe, his own contingency plan if you ever went dark. And to I don't like spoiling things on the comic bench. I want to promote people that go and read the comics. And a lot of my friends on the Batman on Film people, and we're gonna get into Batman Book Club. My homie Ryan Lauer. Big congrats on Ryan Lauer to getting Tom King to do an interview at some point. That's freaking awesome, dude. Anyway, I digress. And this issue is pretty much heavily influenced on the Tower of Babel, in my opinion, and then also a Grant Morrison story. We'll get into that in a second. And I don't think the story is bad. I think the story is pretty solid. It's not great. It's not terrible. I think his whole run feels like, and I've told some people this, I think a lot of people don't like this Batman run. They think it's whatever, mediocre. I think this Batman run is basically, or this initial Batman run, it feels like this was a Justice League story, in my opinion, that was rewritten and retooled for a Batman story. Now, that could mean a lot of different things, but I think there's a heavy emphasis on the Justice League in this run, which is nice. There's a hilarious moment in this one. Oh my god, that I just lost it. And I was curious that might not play for a lot of different fans out there. I liked it. I thought it was pretty funny. But yeah, this felt like a Justice League story. This did not feel like a Batman solo story. There's definitely solo Batman elements in it, but it's not. This is not a Batman story where it's like this is street level. It's more of the superhero aspect. And to be fair, that's one. That's I think it's interesting that Chip Zdarsky leaned heavily more into than others. So that maybe other writers might have. So there's lots of cool things there. I think that's the biggest criticism. I think I understand why people maybe not didn't like it, is that when you emphasize more of the Justice League elements, you have to really know what you're doing. And it wasn't bad. It just wasn't amazing or wasn't great. So I don't know. I liked it. I thought it was fine. The biggest thing I would say about Chip Zdarsky's run that I thought was interesting was he brought in an element of Grant Morrison, which is that Zura N guy, the purple yellow guy. And I have not read very much of Grant Morrison's run of elements of that whole side of Batman. And a lot of fans don't like that. I haven't read it. I've heard great things. Chris Cloud raves about Grant Morrison's Batman. I have not read it. We will cover it one day on the Batman. Oh my god, on the comic binge. But yeah, they bring in that element of Grant Morrison, which is very hit and miss for people. The fact that Zdarsky interweaves Justice League, Tower of Babel with a Grant Morrison to Mark Waid to Grant Morrison, continuity. That's interesting. That's pretty interesting. So I don't want to fault him for all that. So I liked it. The one thing I'm going to say, my favorite part of the story is actually probably the backups, which there's the Catwoman ones or whatever, but the ones that kind of more they're written by Chip. I think Chip wrote the Catwoman ones too. Never mind. So the Batman ones. There's a Batman and Joker kind of mini, like little couple of mini stories that connect here the last couple of issues, and they're pretty good. Like I'm like okay, and it definitely gives me like hope that Zdarsky is very capable. It reminds me actually because obviously that story for the Urban Legends Batman story is fantastic. Guys, go read that Chip Zdarsky Red Hood Batman Urban Legends comic. It's on DC Infinite. It's so good. It's so good. Those short stories in there reminded me that Chip can write Batman. He can, and it's interesting. So I liked it. There's elements in this. I think it's not great. It's not the greatest, but it's not terrible. It's just a very more of a superhero Batman more than a street level Batman, which maybe hit and miss for some people. But I like these issues. These weren't bad. I don't regret buying these and reading these at all. These are a lot of fun. And I don't know if Chip's going to keep doing the stories or if he's going to keep going or not, but I don't know. I like them. I think they're good. I'm gonna play or not play. I'm gonna show everyone what my buddy Lauer. I asked him to say a little something, and this is what he said. Zdarsky is a great writer. The arc didn't live up to the best, or didn't live up to his best, in my opinion. That's Ryan Lauer here saying this. Fun action, great art from Jorge Jaimes. Yeah, man, that art is chef's kiss. I hope the story is better. The next story is better. Batman Book Club. Yeah, I think it will be. I don't think Chip Zdarsky is a bad writer. I'm very curious what he'll do if he's going to have more than just 6 issues or more than a year. I mean, probably only has a year. I know they're getting rebooted again at some point, but I'm very interested to see what Zdarsky and Ram V kind of go off of each other and what that means. And we'll see. We'll see. It's very weird that there is actually a Daredevil and a Batman writer writing it at the same time, because I don't think Frank Miller ever did that at the same time. I think he did one or the other. And so the fact that you have Batman and Daredevil writers writing the same, the characters at the same time, it's very, very interesting and very just, yeah. I don't know. It's crazy. It's really crazy to see. Yeah. So if you're wondering if you're on the fence about Chip Zdarsky's Batman, I'm going to say, yeah, go for it. Don't expect super dark alleyways and things like that. But it wasn't bad. I think that's more Ram V's maybe. Maybe his is more psychological. which I have only read one issue, and I can't wait to binge the rest of it. So, but Ran V's written some great stuff, man. These Savage Shores, go read it. That's a fantastic, fantastic comic. The less you know about that comic, the better. Really cool, kind of fantasy element kind of stuff. Definitely recommend that. I read a little bit of a Swamp Thing. It's pretty good too. He's a really good writer. He's written some. He's a really good talent out there. He's worth checking out. So yeah, Mega Chill stream. Just gonna keep it real here. Just keep it short and sweet. Yeah, Chip Zdarsky, I'm gonna give it a B minus. And that made me sound like more of a negative thing, but it's not. It's a pretty solid story. Just didn't have the best. It just felt like a Justice League story in a Batman comic. And it really felt like a retooled Justice League story. Would not shock me if Zdarsky ended up doing was a script that he written for Justice League, and they said, "Why don't you retool this, make it a Batman story?" Would not be shocked. Would not be shocked. So anyway, thank you for checking out the video. Hit like, subscribe, comment. Really appreciate everyone who does and likes the video. Really appreciate it. And yeah, Chris is in here, so I'm going to say read more comics. All right, everyone. Thanks for listening and watching.